All right, this is the design tips and tricks, and this is on laminate countertops today. I want to do this because a lot of people have to do sinkhole cutouts, and some people don't know a lot about the material. Laminate will cut with just about any kind of a carbide bit or a hole saw kit with a bimetal blade. But whenever you're laying out a sinkhole, most of the time it's going to be for a 33 by 22 sink. 33 by 22 drop-in stainless sink requires a 32 1/4 by 21 1/4 opening, but more importantly, it requires a radiused corner. So if you come right here and look, we've measured off the square end or the factory cut end. You don't ever measure from the mitered end. You measure from the square end so that you have accurate pull lengths, okay? Of course, the center of the sink, we've laid this top in on top and we marked it with the center of the doors below, so we know for sure that we're in the center of the sink base. But we take that same mark, measure back to this end, and then we pull that same length from this square end to the back here, connect the two so that we have the center line. This is our center of our sink. Everything that we do is going to work off the center of the sink. And again, the actual measurement, 32 1/4 is the width, and then by 21 1/4, that's 3/4 inch smaller than the actual measurement of the sink itself. And so when we do center here, we go to the left, it's going to be 16 1/8. So from the center line to the left, 16 1/8, that's half of 32 1/4. We're going to go 16 1/8 to the right. And then we're going to double check our measurement off the center line by holding both tapes and measuring to length, 32 1/4, okay? Similarly, when we look at the back here, this is the part that messes with everybody. They don't understand where the cut starts at. So on this particular top here, I have a 1.5 inch overhang. I have a 3/4 inch countertop or face frame thickness. So I've got a 1.5 inch overhang, a 3/4 face. So that's going to be 2 inches and 1/4. So 2 1/4 is off the roll. So 2 1/4 is where the edge of the hole cutout is going to be at. When I come 3/4 of an inch forward, that's going to be where the edge of the actual sink sits at. Now it's important that the sink cutout be behind the face frame. If you do not have the sink cutout behind the face frame, when you go to put your sink in, the flange that drops in can actually hit the face frame of the cabinets and can cause a problem. So again, the normal offset is 2 to 2 1/4 inches. It's all got to do with how much overhang you have after you trimmed everything to fit. Now this particular one here, the wall was really bad out of square, and it was also bad out of depth. Right here, we had to order this top at 26 inches deep for a 24 inch deep cabinet. There was almost an inch on the right hand side over there. There was almost an inch of the countertop that had to be trimmed off on this left side, because this went into the back of it almost an inch deeper. You can see the wall line here that we had to cut off. But needless to say, when we start laying this out, after everything's been scribed to the walls, the miter is fitted, everything looks good, that's when you're going to cut the hole for the sink. First thing we're going to do is going to get a 2 1/2 inch hole saw. Half of this will be 1 1/4. So we're going to take and go right here. We're going to mark 1 1/4 by 1 1/4. We're going to mark that same thing on all 4 corners, and that's going to be where our pilot bit makes the cut. And we're going to stop the video for just a second while we make these cuts, and then we'll... Okay, now we're back to what we're doing. Again, 2 1/2 inch hole saw. This is a mandrel, and the mandrel has the starter bit. So we marked 1 1/4 off both sides here, from both sides of the line. The idea here is we cannot cut this square. If we cut this square, it will show out from under the sink and you've ruined the countertop. So we have to come half. This distance is half of what your hole saw is going to be. Now I usually take it off of the mandrel and I will go ahead and start the hole, and this keeps me from getting out of place whenever I go to do the actual hole saw. I already have my holes popped at exactly where I want to be at. Now when I put my hole saw back on, I'm already centered on my hole. I don't have to worry about walking. I just want to show you, I'm just inside of the line, and that's great. Being outside of the line could be a problem, but being inside the line is perfect. And when we go to make our cuts here in a second, we'll actually cut along this line and dump the blade into the hole as we cut. Come back in just a minute and do those cuts. All right, so now what we're doing is we're setting the saw blade to 1 5/8". This is 1.5 inches thickness, so just barely below. Don't ever take and run this blade all the way down. What that does is causes excessive chipping on the front. So we're going to set it to just the depth from right here. We're going to set it to just the depth, slightly through the deck, which is right there. And we're going to make the cuts on the long part of this after we make the cuts on the sides. The sides on the cuts are first. All right, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to use a very fine tooth blade, nothing coarse, very fine tooth blade. Again, we're going to come in, we've made all of our straight cuts here with our skill saw. We went into the hole as close as we can. Make sure that when you're cutting this with a skill saw that you never back up. If you miss the line, keep moving forward. Do not back up. It will ride up on top of the material, jump across, catch a finger, all kinds of stuff. So again, when you're using a skill saw, you want to push down into the blade, push through, and if you've got something left, you come back and clean it up with a small blade like this one. All right, so the last thing again, we got the hole out. We're gonna go back and take the jigsaw and the fine tooth, and when you see a little bit of notching here, some places that are just not perfect, it does matter for you to clean these up. If your flange of your sink hangs on this stuff, then you're going to come right back to the sawhorses and you're going to spend more time than you should. So anytime you're doing this, you want to clean up any of these leftover spots, these little nibs, just because you want a clean hole cut out and not any problems. Anything else, feel free to give me a call, 423-650-1051. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Bye-bye.